Seawald, and this is Authentic Parenting, a podcast about personal development in the context of parenting, where I explore how you can find more calm, connection, and joy in parenting through the process of self-discovery and inner growth with a trauma-informed lens. I'm a parent educator, and my mission is to help children by helping parents. The motto of this podcast is raising our children, growing ourselves. Today is the final episode of the year. I usually do these episodes alone, but this year I have a co-host. We reflect on the passing year, what the podcast meant for me. You get to hear some real personal stuff. What things I had set out to do but didn't happen. I share my favorite episodes from this year and I tell you why they were my favorite. Take you behind the scenes and reveal some interesting things you don't want to miss. I share funny, awkward moments that I had with my guests while recording the podcast. Then we announce the top 10 episodes of 2020, as well as we share our lists, 21 items for 2021, intentions, goals, things we want to work on or do in the new year. We also talk about our book club, our support group, and a few other things. And of course, you get to hear my plans for the podcast for the new year. And yes, new and exciting things are coming to the show. Please enjoy. Julie, welcome to the final episode of 2020.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I know, I'm excited too. We did our episode together last week and it was a good one. I really enjoyed our conversation and I'm hoping we will talk about great things today. We're going to talk about the year of 2020 for the podcast, reflect back, lessons I've learned, mistakes I've made, things I want to do differently in the next year. We're going to share the top 10 episodes of the podcast. That's always fun. And then we're going to share our lists we prepared ahead of time, 21 items for 2021. And we'll talk more about that as we get to the list. So, are you enjoying recording the podcast with me? Are you feeling nervous?
I'm nervous, but I'm excited.
That's the good kind of nervousness.
Yes. Good nervous. Yes.
Okay. So let's start.
Awesome. So Anna, what did the podcast mean to you this year in 2020?
So usually at the end of the year, I sit down, I look at the entire catalog of the podcast. Usually it's like 52 episodes, and I reflect and think of a word that summarizes the podcasting year for me. Last year, the word for me was community, as the Authentic Parenting community came together in the Authentic Parenting first ever live event. And that word community for me became so real and palpable, right? Because before it was just a podcast, like an abstract thing. But when people actually gathered together, I felt that community sense. And it was so meaningful. This year, we took that word like a whole another level high up. And the word for me when I reflect back in terms of this podcast is closeness. And it's because of COVID-19 in March, I started the support group and we became so close, so intimate. We've grown together and we have our core group of people. And so the word for me for the podcast is closeness, which is great. I think it's a good idea. Even if you're not a podcaster, it's a good idea to sit down as a parent, as a business owner, as a passionate personal development person, to sit down and take time to reflect on the past year. Not only take time, but also reflect and write down in a journal, in some place, lessons learned, mistakes made. Have this overview of the year, because I think it's such a great exercise. Do you do such exercise?
I started this year, and in preparing for last week's podcast, I wrote down a ton of stuff. I kept telling myself I needed to journal. I wanted to get all these thoughts out of my head. Mm-hmm. And by preparing for last week's podcast, it was so therapeutic. And now I can't stop writing. I have pages and pages of words. So yes, it's therapeutic for me.
Last year, I also had planned the Authentic Parenting Conference, for 2020. I had selected the date, October 17th. But as we know, everything went out the window. 2020 ruined everybody's plans. So I had to cancel that. And last year also, I had committed to delivering a lighter content, as it became to my attention that my podcast is pretty heavy. We talk about trauma. We share profound and compelling personal stories. It's great. I think I like that, but I'm not sure if I want to spread that all around all the time. So I was feeling guilty because people like you and some of the other listeners have been contacting me. And what was my suggestion usually?
I couldn't believe it, but you told me to stop listening to podcasts, just to start being more mindful. These podcasts were amazing, but they were also triggering for me because I will listen to them and not know what to do after it.
So yet I had committed to delivering lighter content, and there are some episodes, I think, in the 2020 catalog that are lighter. But however, the pandemic hit and I had to cover pandemic related stuff and talk about the real struggles. So the year again messed up with my plans. So I'm going to share in the end of this episode what I have planned for 2021. So it's going to be really great. Yesterday we had a conversation together, and I just want to hear your take on it again. And I want to talk about it a little bit. One of the reasons why I want to deliver this lighter content is I've seen a trend in our community, also in social media, that people learn and gather information about trauma, nervous system, parts work, inner child, reparenting, attachment. All of those things are accessible, available. There are courses, there are programs and podcasts. I think the internet makes it so vastly accessible that people want to learn. And once you learn, you feel good, right? Now I know my attachment style. Now I know, my parents had trauma and I have generational trauma. People are using this kind of language and it's great. I'm not against it. But what I see is people get stuck and they suffer and they sort of become a victim of their own history, of their own trauma. Oftentimes, they also get re-triggered, reactivated, and because they're doing this learning work on their own, even though sometimes they're part of courses and group coaching, you're still left alone with your own history, sometimes activated. And you have to carry on with life, take care of your children, be present for your children, deal with life's problems and responsibilities. And what I see is it's not helpful for people. So I wanted to speak up against that. And it's not about gathering information like a little squirrel. What are you going to do with this information, right? It's time to take action. And sometimes learning and digging about all those wounds and things like that is not even important. I am more forward-focused, more action-driven, giving people tools and helping them become more resilient, as opposed to, let's see what happened when you were 4 years old. Let's get in touch with your inner child. Like, I am not putting that down, but I think enough is enough. And a term that I came up with, and I see you're impatient, you want to say something, and I want to give the floor to you, is what I see is people feel empowered, right? Because you gained information, you read the books, you listened to all of this, but you're still a victim. And that bothers me. I want to empower the person truly to really take charge of their life. And those programs sometimes keep you in victimhood because they want you to get their solution, right? They tell you there's something effed up with you. I have the solution, come here. But it's not the real deal. Or sometimes it's illusory. There's no magic pill. We know that this is serious work. And it can be very detrimental for a category of people. Now, maybe not everyone, but I know certain people who've been really, really reactivated and they can't calm down. So now it's your turn.
That was me. I have been very triggered in reading book after book and listening to podcast after podcast. And I've taken some courses that have talked about childhood traumas in the past, which I found very helpful to me to help me understand the whys. And in the same courses that I'm taking, they were teaching me, okay, now this is what we need to do to calm your nervous system. This is what we need to do to this. So for me, I get it. I did not want to be stuck in the victim part of this. I didn't realize or know that I was. I just knew. So I was creating my own misery, but I didn't know how to get out of it. I was never taught coping skills, soothing skills. I was never taught, hey, how is your body feeling? Oh, maybe you're having a panic attack. Let's try this. So this was a lot of self-taught stuff, but also with the help of you and Dr. Laura Froyen and, all 50 books that I have that my husband has kindly showed me all of these books saying, hey, you've read all these. You've told me some amazing things. Like, what are you going to do about it? And I looked at him like a deer in headlights. I'm like, what do you mean? What am I going to do about them? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I just know that I understand all of this work, but action, like what you're saying. So it's with the help of professionals that I am learning how to take action and to make these changes. So I would say in the last month, I've been taking action. And I think it's because of a conversation that you and I had, actually was on our group therapy call session. You kind of lit a fire under me.
Yeah. I'm excited for you because you have done a lot of work. And I want the person to take charge of their own life, to take responsibility, to regain that sense of agency. But if you're taking programs and participating in reading, listening, and just acquiring information, it's an overwhelm. It's like you're stuck and you can't get out on your own. And so to that person, I always tell, stop. I mean, we can go on and on about this topic, but let's change gears and go over. I know you have some rapid questions about the podcast. I would be happy to answer them.
Anna, what were some of your favorite episodes this year and why?
That's a good question. So my favorite episodes actually may not be the top 10 episodes of the podcast, which is kind of surprising, but here we go. I liked the episode with Tina Payne Bryson. It's called Parenting in Quarantine. I think it was in the beginning of quarantine we recorded this. Everything was new. And she shares some profound and insightful things about their latest book, Showing Up. And I really enjoyed connecting with her. She was a guest for the first time. And it's a really great conversation. I think every parent should listen to this episode. She talks about the 4 S's of parenting and really some down-to-earth way of speaking about parenting, that we don't need perfect parenting. Our children need from us just to show up. And I love that message. Another favorite episode of mine was Finding Yourself After a Broken Marriage. Now, this sounds like it's about divorce or broken marriage, but honestly, the woman who was a guest, she was so honest and open and vulnerable. And she talked so beautifully about needs, her husband's needs, what broke their marriage. It's such an amazing conversation. It doesn't have to be if you're on the verge of divorce or if you're a divorced person. It's not, this is for everyone, for any woman who wants to change their marriage, the flavor of their relationship, and understand their partner. I think there's so much honesty, and she was just an amazing guest. That's why I love this episode. It was very real. Another episode that is my favorite is 5 Shifts in Agility for Thriving in the Time of Disruption. Again, this was a phenomenal guest, Hannah Inam. I wanted to have her on the podcast 4 years ago. I heard her speak somewhere. She has written a few books, and one of the books is about authenticity, called Wired for Authenticity. And I just love her definition of authenticity. The latest book we talk about in this episode about her latest book, and it's such a relevant conversation, how she thinks about agility and what it means, emotional agility. We talk about that. Another episode that is my favorite is an episode with Dr. Laura Froen, my friend and my co-host, The Secret to Getting Kids to Listen and Cooperate. It's a short episode, but it's chock full of insights and very practical tips. It's a conversation about power, control, influence, traditional ways of parenting versus parenting with respect and authenticity. And it resonated with a lot of people. Again, we shared some personal examples, and I know people love that. Another favorite of mine is a solo episode, and I had set out to do more solo episodes in 2020, and I think I'm happy with the amount of solo episodes that I provided for the podcast. The 3 R's of pandemic parenting, the 3 R's being regulation, relationships, and routines. Why I love this episode is because it came to me, this entire pandemic parenting, I squeezed into these 3 notions, and I understood that if we have routines, regulation, self-regulation, and helping our children regulate their feelings, and if we prioritize relationships, thus mental health and emotional health, everything will be fine. We'll get through difficult times. And I think that's why I love that episode. Another favorite of mine, which is a phenomenal episode, and I highly recommend any parent of older children to listen to this episode, is How to Raise a Self-Driven Child with Dr. William Stix. This was a very heartwarming conversation. It helped me personally to hear what he was saying, and he was an amazing guest. He didn't want to leave. It was one of those great conversation. And again, it's very, very helpful. I have another episode, which is a solo episode that I really like, 10 Ways to Support Your Child and Your Teen Through the Pandemic. I think the title says it all. In it, I talk about giving children more autonomy, lessening the control, because parents have been complaining that they see a lot of resistance, defiance, disobedience, kids not listening during this pandemic, struggles with virtual school. And I sort of gave my top 10 tips and advice in this episode. And the last episode that is my favorite is Anxiety Relief Strategies for You and Your Struggling Child. Another episode that I did with my colleague and dear friend Laura Froen. And again, we answered the listener questions. I think, Julie, we answered your question here.
Yes.
And I know you have things to say about this episode too.
I love all of your favorites. They're my favorites as well. I love the episodes you do with Dr. Laura because, you're answering real questions from your real listeners. So they're extremely helpful to me.
Yes. Moving on. What do you have next for me?
All right. Anna, who was your favorite guest and why of 2020?
I think my favorite guest has to be Dr. William Stix. because he came onto the podcast at the time where I personally was struggling with parenting, and I needed to hear what he had to say. And I was struggling not only as a parent at that time, but it was in October, and I hit a low point during the entire pandemic. I hit a very low point. I was like severely depressed almost. And when I had that conversation with him, it just enlivened me, gave me new juice and passion for life. And it's very special for me. I think I made a turnaround after that. And I said, yes, this is why I love podcasting, because when you connect to smart individuals and have in-depth conversations, it just nourishes you so much.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Anything surprising that happened in 2020?
Yes, there is one episode that is a favorite for many listeners, and I know it's a favorite for you too. Healing Relational Trauma with Dr. Nima. He's a chiropractor, but he's Dr. Nima. And it was a pitch. I didn't want to take him as a guest because I had set out not to take any pitches, and I take as little as possible because I love to select my own guests, right? Because I know why I am reaching out to someone to be on the podcast. But the message that he sent, it was very intriguing, about relational trauma, attachment, and all of that, even though I had said I'm not going to cover that topic. But I said, you know what? He seems very entertaining. I watched a few videos of him and I said, you know what? He's a very lighthearted, he has humor. So I invited him and I had no idea who he was. And when I published the episode, I was very doubtful how it will be perceived by my listener. But it was such an amazing reception, such great feedback. And then he sent me a screenshot of a text message that he had with a woman who turns out to be my listener and his client. And she had sent a very beautiful message about me, about the podcast, and how it was just a wonderful, it was very surprising.
I really, really enjoyed that episode. I remember it. I remember where I was when I was listening to it, being, telling myself, wow, this guy knows his stuff. And I could feel the connection between you two. It was a good one.
Yes. He was very animated. There's a lot of energy exchange. Yes.
Anything awkward happened on your podcast this year?
Yes. Anything awkward was, I'm not sure if it's awkward, but what's the right word for this experience? But Larry Hagner from the episode, If You Didn't Grow Up in a Happy Family, How to Have a Happy Family, I guess. And the titles, let me say a couple of words about the titles. After I record an episode with someone, coming up with the title is a fun process, but it's a hard process because you have to choose something that entices people to click and listen. But the conversations are a lot deeper and varied than just one aspect, right? So that conversation is a good one. It's about marriage, about relationships, kids, parenting. And I had an appointment with him to record on Monday. And as I mentioned before, I had this low iron condition and I was feeling very bad that particular day, but I never canceled any interviews in 5 years. So I showed up and he looked at me. He said, "Are you okay, Anna?" I said, "To tell you the truth, I'm not. Like, I'm shaky, I'm cold, my heart pressure is very low and I feel like I'm dying. I have a panic attack. I needed to lie down because if I sit down, my blood drops down and I get dizzy and lightheaded." And I was alone. And he said, "We can reschedule. Don't worry about it." I said, "Oh, that would be really good." I said, "Can you stay on the phone with me while I call my husband so he can come home?" And he did. It was such a nice gesture. He was very compassionate and warm. And so that was a very, I'm not sure awkward, but an interesting experience. And so shout out to Larry Hagner.
What a sweet guy. That was really nice.
Yes.
All right. Can you share a funny moment that you've had on your podcasts?
I did have a funny moment this year, and I was interviewing this elderly gentleman. I'm not going to mention who he is and what episode he is from. I had sent him the Zoom link and with instructions what to do, how to do. And I get on the Zoom call with him and it's a video call, but he can't hear me for some reason. And, I'm saying, hello, hello, hello. And he can't hear me, but I can hear him and I can see him. And then he's trying to figure out on his own what to do. But I'm sending him a text. I'm sending him an email. He's not receiving these messages. He's trying to figure it out so badly. And he's getting frustrated. He's looking under his glasses, over his glasses. He's calling his wife for help. And it was a hell. And he was cursing already, getting frustrated with this computer. And then he started sharing his screen with me because that he hit that share screen function. And I could see what he's doing. He's doing everything wrong. And I'm sitting here screaming, oh no, please don't click that. No. And then we finally found a way to connect again after like 15 minutes. And because I had heard him curse already and get frustrated, it was kind of awkward to start a serious, like a podcast interview. I was holding my laughter, but that was like an innocent, sweet moment that this elderly man was dealing with this technology.
That is funny. Now, how about something on your end where you think you were muted and you were not? Maybe with your daughter?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. That's a good one. My daughter was knocking on the door as I was recording, and I have a sign that says, do not disturb podcast recording. She keeps knocking and knocking and knocking, and I am not concentrating on my guest. I'm like, what's happening? Is it an emergency? I'm not going to go. I'm ignoring and ignoring and ignoring. And then I couldn't ignore anymore. And I was waiting for an opening when my guest can stop for a moment and I can say, I'm sorry, can I just check on my daughter? And he said, yeah, sure. I opened the door. There, my daughter standing happily. Nothing is happening with the cell phone. And she goes, Mom, can you give me 15 minutes on TikTok? I said, is that what you were like knocking on my door for? She's like, yeah. And I just lost it. I said, can't you see I'm recording a podcast? There's a real person there. Do you know who he is? And I just locked the door. I said, no, you're not getting 15 minutes. I come, I sit down and I'm, okay, where were we? And he started laughing. He's like, I guess you don't take your own advice, Anna. It was so good. It was so good.
Hey, I understand that. I have a 12-year-old who is always asking for more screen time, and TikTok is pretty important to them these days. So I hear you.
Indeed. So Julie, this year, as we mentioned multiple times, we started the support group and you're part of it. And I want you to say a few words about the support group, why it's so great and why the listeners should join us, because we're going to continue the support groups, the calls, and we're going to be more focused and action driven as I'm thinking about the new year. We have developed a core group of people, but we invite and welcome other people. We have created the subgroup on Messenger and we chat daily and post and support one another, and we've become very close. But I want to say that the support calls are open to everyone. There is no opt-in. It's free. There's no hidden agenda. You just receive a link, you click on it, and I don't promote it. I don't advertise as much anymore because we have our system pretty much. But what would you like to say to the listener who doesn't know what it's about? What makes this group so effective and helpful?
It's a pretty amazing group. And to be honest, I was hesitant to get on any calls. It's vulnerable for me to, see people face to face and talk to strangers and tell them about my problems. However, I did it. I put myself out there and it was the best decision I could have ever made. It is what helped hold my hand through this virus. I've made friends from across the country. We have similar situations, although, some of us are married, some divorced, some single, some with multiple kids. That we have so many differences, but yet we all have the same issues, right? So what I want to say to people listening now is don't be afraid to get on these calls. It's a non-judgmental group of amazing parents that are supportive and will help you through whatever problem it is that you have. And we are absolutely open and excited for more people to join and be part of our group.
Yeah, we started doing video calls randomly with the core group of people on Messenger. That has been phenomenal. When someone is going through something, we reach out, we text, and it's been such a lifeline for me personally. I think that's one of the good things that happened to me in 2020, this support group. And we're talking about meeting somewhere, taking a vacation, and I just can't emphasize the power of groups. When I was in psychology school, I always liked group therapy because it was a lot more helpful. The group dynamic helps people to grow better, from my experience. And this group proved to be that. And we're so different. And we started the book club and we met via Zoom, discussed the book. Then we started the holiday card exchange. And I have my cards here on my shelf. My husband read the cards that you guys have sent me. And he's like, wow, Anna, like what's going on? Like you have a completely different life, with this support group people. When someone hears support group, parenting support group, authentic parenting, they don't know what they're missing out, like what we have created here. It's just an amazing group of individuals, and I'm so proud of us.
We got a random call this weekend from one of the members in the group. She accidentally dialed us all. And I think there were 4 or 5 of us on for over an hour. She was really struggling. And it's just so fascinating hearing the different things from the different group members and the different suggestions and ideas and how we motivate each other and help hold each other accountable. So this group, I believe in the power of group therapy from this.
Yeah, me too. I mean, we're wired for connection. This isolated lifestyle of this COVID-19, we've created this amazing group, and I can't wait to meet in real life with the same group. I mean, we met each other. Some of the members have actually met each other. They dated even. Their kids hung out together. They went to ice skating together. This group is just like phenomenal, So there is a lot of interesting things going on in the group too that most people don't know.
Well, now they know.
Now they know. Oh boy. Okay, let's move on. So another thing I want to mention, there are some listeners who silently support the podcast. And I just want to give a shout out to those 10 amazing people, at least once a year, to say thank you for the bottom of my heart, for believing in my work, for making a donation every month to support the podcast. There is something called patreon.com. It's a place where creatives, artists, creators, podcasters get support via, monetary donations by their fans, by their people. And I've created that page, but I never promote it. And I have 10 supporters, and those people were there for 2 years since I created this page. And it just amazes me, I don't know who they are. I've spoken to some of them. I know 3 of them in person, actually. One of them are you. So I know you, Julie. Mm-hmm. So I want to give a shout out to the following people. I will just say their first names. Amber from Australia. She's been an amazing friend. I'm going to visit Australia one day. She sent me a gift, from Australia for me and for my daughter. And it just amazing. It blows my mind. I tell everyone, my listeners send me this, and everyone is like, what? People who can't relate to the podcast. And we have Valerie from Australia, Angela, Julie, Deborah, Kevin. I would love to know, who is Kevin, right? I don't know. Ranella, Sarah, Ben, and Anna Mazuran is from Switzerland. She had sent the video for the Authentic Parenting Conference, so we know who she is, an amazing human being. All of these people are wonderful people. They have sent me emails. I've spoken with them and connected. But thank you for the bottom of my heart. It takes time and effort and, yes, money to produce the podcast. As I said yesterday to you, it takes $500, a little over, to create this free podcast for people over 5 years, right? And it takes so much work for me, invisible work, to record, to edit, to read the books, to interview, to set up scheduling and everything. So I want to continue doing it. But if people want to feel grateful for the work and the content that they received, there's 2 ways if they want to support the podcast in terms of giving money. The patreon.com is one option. You can become a monthly subscriber as low as $2 a month, or you can give a one-time donation on my website, authenticparenting.com/podcast, and you can see the PayPal link. You can choose any amount. But I've been thinking about it. We have listeners who've been with us from the very beginning, and I have thousands and thousands of listeners from around the world. And if one episode, isn't it worth $1? I think it is, or 50 cents. So just think about how many times you go to Starbucks and get a Frappuccino, mocha, caramel macchiato, whatever, like $4 or $5 drink. If you could support this work that is helping you, I think it's a wonderful way of saying thank you. Now, regardless of the people's support, I'm going to continue the podcast because it means a lot to me at this point. But it's wonderful to see people who back me up, and it makes it more validating. It gives me extra strength to move forward.
Absolutely. And I think also a lot of people that listened to you didn't know that this was an option. I know I just posted yesterday in your Facebook group, and since then Justin signed up, right?
Correct. Yes. Justin signed up as a rock star. Rock star is a $10 a month, right?
Yay,
and
thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Justin. Yes, you are a rock star. And those names have been selected by my daughter a couple of years ago when we were setting up the system. She has fan, super fan, rock star, unicorn, and I never changed it. But I could do something for the Patreon community, for the people who are joining and supporting the podcast. They can get maybe access to our support call or the book club. We can do exclusive things for them. And maybe we can discuss this together, how we can be of service to those people who support the podcast. Mm-hmm. Right?
Definitely. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Yes. So moving on, what's next on the agenda?
The top 10 episodes that were decided by the podcast itself.
The listeners. Yes. The downloads, the download numbers. Yes. Okay. Here are the top 10 episodes of 2020. What's number 10, Julie?
Number 10 is How to Break Free of the Drama Triangle.
This is a good episode. I really like this episode about being a victim, persecutor, or a rescuer. It's a really great conversation. What's really number 9?
Number 9 is The Coaching Call. It was the performance trap of modern motherhood.
I remember this call very vividly. It's with Jackie, and she was struggling with mommy guilt, and she was tying her worth as a mom to how she was performing and being perfectionistic and doing and feeling really bad about herself as a mom.
I can totally relate to that. Yes.
This is a good coaching episode.
That was a good one. Number 8, helping kids to manage emotion, ease anxiety, and stay focused.
This is a great episode about mindfulness, teaching children meditation and mindfulness with Tejal Patel, who wrote a phenomenal book, 40 Activities. It's a great book for any educator, any parent, and you don't have to be a meditator yourself to teach meditation to your children. This is a very practical episode. There's lots of exercises she shares in it. Number 7, what is it?
How to play with your kids when you don't like playing. And this was with Dr. Laura Froyen. I really enjoyed this one because I don't always love to play with my kids. So with all your episodes with Laura, I love hearing you guys. I feel like you're talking to me saying, Julie, it's okay. It's okay if you don't want to play with your kid, So thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay. What's number 6?
Number 6 is Parenting in Quarantine with Tina Bryson.
Yeah, I already spoke about that.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5.
Ditch Busy, Finding a Happier Balance.
I think this is a great episode to listen to in the beginning of a year. This woman, Kelly Pietrangeli, she's from UK, and she created a tool called Project Me. And it tackles 8 key areas of your life. And it sort of holds you accountable. You evaluate each month the key areas of your life. There is lots of worksheets, action sheets, and it's like a very good way of starting the year, thinking, planning, and getting organized and productive and focusing on important aspects of life. I just listened to this yesterday, and it was a great, great episode. Number 4.
Number 4, Transform Your Boundaries.
I think boundaries is a buzzword. It's a very hot topic these days. This is
Huge.
A good episode. No wonder it's on the 4th place.
Yes. I'm all about boundaries these days.
Number 3.
Feel less busy while getting more done.
Again, another great episode if you are beginning the year as a busy mom, as a busy parent, trying to juggle many responsibilities. This episode is about productivity, time, how to think about time differently with Laura Vanderkam. She's a mom of 5 kids, and she's written several books. She's a very famous person. Again, a fantastic episode. What's number 2?
Number 2, how to deal with a narcissist.
Again, this is a great episode if you have questions about narcissism, understanding narcissists, the types of narcissists, what it is, if you were raised with a narcissistic parent, how to deal with one. If you have doubts that you might be a narcissist, this is like a nice overview of this topic. With Dr. Ramani, she's again very popular, famous person, an expert in narcissism, I would say. And number 1 is
childhood emotional neglect.
I am not surprised, right? Because this podcast is, after all, about trauma, informed parenting and personal development. And this is a great episode. This woman, Janice Webb, the author of Running on Empty, a great book, wrote about childhood emotional neglect. And as far as I remember, this was a really good conversation.
We'll have to add that book to our book club list.
Yes. Her second book actually is more practical. Maybe we can do her second book. It's more of an action-oriented.
Oh.
So if you have CEN, childhood emotional neglect, how you can recover and make your life better.
That sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah. That concludes the top 10 episodes of 2020. Quite an interesting list. I am surprised not to see certain episodes that I thought might be on this list, but hey, it's up to the listener. And now, Julie, let's do 21 for 21. Let's share our lists. Before we got on this call, I asked you to think about some goals, intentions, ideas, things to do, things to work on, 21 items for 2021. I've been doing this exercise for the past 4 or 5 years, and it's been quite an enlightening exercise, and I almost never complete all of the items on the list for a specific year. But it's really good to look back and say, wow, I have created this list for 2018 and this is what I have done. It's been quite interesting. So since we're coming out of this rough year 2020, I thought it would be good to make a list. And if the listener wants to do this exercise, they can do it in multiple ways. Since 21 is a big number, there's a lot of items you can write in there. You can do different categories. of 21 items that you want to work on or implement, or intentions or goals, you can do 21 parenting books to read in 2021. If you're a baker or a cook or enjoy cooking, you can do 21 new recipes to try in 2021. You can take it and apply to your life however you want. Mine this year is all personal development related, as opposed to last year's, which was a short list, and it was mostly about podcasting. The year before for me was mostly a garden variety. And I had items like take a dance class, or, do this with my daughter, go to this place. It was a very, garden variety list. So I want to start with you, Julie. Why don't you share your list with me and with the listener?
I am happy to. And I feel like my list is pretty intense, but 2020 was a major year of self-growth for me. I learned a lot through a lot of scary moments, and I just want to keep going with what I've learned. And if I feel like if it's written down, it will help hold me more accountable. So here is my list. I want to start a Facebook group for other moms that have had heart babies so that I can help give them emotional support. I would like to lose 15 pounds. It's been a goal for a while. I'm really going to do it this year. I want to eat healthier, meaning less sugar. I truly believe I have a sugar addiction. I want to plan a retreat for you and your community. So yay, I'm excited about that.
Yeah. We're going to do it.
Yes. I choose what I believe. If I'm called a name or said, I hate you by a child of mine, it's up to me to continue to change the talk that's going on in my head and spin it into positive mindset, reworking the way that I think. I am trying to stay more calm, because calm equals calm. So when I'm calm, my kids will calm down quicker, and that it's okay not to respond when I'm being yelled at, and quietly walking away and letting the other person calm down and me not engaging. If I've made a mistake or if I've hurt someone, even if unintentional, that I own it, I apologize and repair. I am working on letting go of control, which I did not realize I had an issue with, but clearly that was a big issue. So I'm going to think in my mind, am I trying to control this situation or this person? Is this my problem? And if it's not, I need to let it go. I am trying to stop taking everything so personally. I'm trying to look at it from the other person's perspective. And I don't want to go from being the parent, the mom, to the wounded child. I want to break that cycle there. Taking more breaks for myself. If I want to go lay in bed and watch a TV show while my kids are doing something on their own, I'm going to do it. Before I had a lot of mommy guilt, but I started doing it, and it truly helps me. I want to continue to take a pause, a breath, or a break before responding to a situation. Like I said, it's okay to walk away and come back, letting the other person know that that's what's going on. I need to continue to regularly figure out my needs. And journaling, like I said, journaling for this podcast has helped me more figure out my needs. So I think that's really important. I don't even know if I knew what my needs were before 2020. Boundaries is a huge one, setting clear boundaries with my children and my husband. And this requires me to figure out my needs first. Letting things go, stop being angry about things. That I am in control of my happiness. I need to take more control of that. And if I am upset or in fight or flight, I keep going back to this. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to take a break. I don't want to talk when I'm triggered or when I'm in fight or flight. It's such a drastic difference when I wait and talk about it when I'm calm. I'm going to continue to pay close attention to my body and how I am feeling when I am triggered, and having a list of things to do ahead of time when I'm triggered so that I don't try and think of them in the moment. I have stopped forcing apologies. Sometimes no apology is okay. I'm trying to see other people's perspective as well. Compassion to myself and others is huge. So when I see some behaviors going on, I am trying so hard to give other people compassion, even when it's the last thing I want to do. And then the last thing that I am going to do is, I've created these mantras and positive sayings in my mind, but I want to print them out, put them on the walls, put them in my bathroom for my kids, my husband to see. Because when I get triggered, I forget sometimes the things that I need to tell myself to calm down. So I am going to be working on making mantras. And that's it.
That's pretty impressive. And the first thing I want to say is like, you almost copied my list, because I have so many items you're going to hear now that are very in the same vein or almost the same thing. I just want to say to the listener that just by listening to Julie's list and mine about to come, maybe that might give you an idea of something to choose from our list and say, you know what, I'm going to take that from Julie's list and put it on my list. I think, exchanging list is a good idea because it gives you like a whole new idea. Maybe you have thought about it, but not exactly. But now that we say it out loud, you're like, you know what? I think I'm going to put that on my list too. So here is my list. Number 1, meditate daily or regularly. I do meditate, but I'm not so consistent. So I want to be a little more consistent with this one. Number 2, and you have this on your list, low or no sugar. I'm not addicted to sugar and I eat low sugar, but I think I want to completely be, in charge of this and get rid of sugar altogether. Exercise regularly. So I have that too. It's hard. It's hard to exercise when you don't like exercising, but I'm going to do it. Here is one. Do everything from the heart. If somebody invites me somewhere, if somebody says something, if somebody asks me about something, I'm going to just sit down and listen to my heart. And if my heart says yes, I'm just going to be guided by my heart and just do things from my heart. It may even be detrimental, but I'm going to do it. Here is my number 5. Turn judgment into curiosity. It's such a hard lesson, but I'm going to work hard this year to not be judgmental at all of anyone, any thought, any person, any event. Anything that rises in my mind, like the first thought usually is, a judgment, an evaluation. I am going to relinquish this. I'm going to be open and come from a curious place. Number 6 on my list is let go, just like you have on your list. And here is what I mean. Not linger on negative events, emotions, or wallow in your pain. Let's say somebody sent me a negative email or an angry request or an angry phone call I received from a client one day, blaming me of something. Once it's over, I am going to not linger on it. I'm going to detach myself and not think about it, worry about it, play it in my head over and over, share with people. I am going to learn to just let go. That's my goal. Number 7 on my list is don't be defensive. When having a conversation that turns into an argument or a heated conversation about politics with a friend and things like that, do not be defensive. Just see what's going to show up for you. Maybe there's a learning thing here. Maybe the person is upset and it has nothing to do with me. Why am I being defensive? So I am going to be practicing this as hard as it is. Trust me. Number 8 on my list is visualize. Start to doing more of in terms of my health, in terms of my business, in terms of life, visualizing things happens in your brain first. And when it happens in reality, this is a good exercise. Visualization is really powerful tool. I'm going to do more of it. Write more articles on the things that I'm an expert on, that I'm passionate about. I started it last year, but I didn't go anywhere with it. I just compiled a bunch of articles about co-parenting, mostly divorce and co-parenting. And I want to continue doing more of that. Tend to my mailing list, which I had neglected for a complete year. I want to get back to sending emails and, about news about the podcast, events and workshops and things like that. The next one on my list is take care of my face. I'm no spring chicken, obviously. We're getting wrinkles here. So I'm not going to get a Botox or anything like that, but I want to do more natural things. My daughter loves masks and things like that. So I'm going to tend to my face this year. And I don't use makeup. So that's like another thing. Here is another one on my list. Learn something that will challenge me, either a new language, like I like languages, or some kind of class that I can take online. And thank goodness, this COVID-19 pandemic opened the door to a lot of online things, right? I want to take some kind of class that will challenge me. So I want to learn something new. Here is another one that you had on your list. Journal more. I used to be a journaler since age 13, and I have books and books and notebooks of journals, but I stopped for several years now, and I journal randomly. But I'm going to be with you journaling more and more this year. Here is number 14 on my list. Stay with unpleasant feelings and feel them. As yucky as they are, I'm going to practice that. Another one on my list is walk 10,000 steps daily. Continue walking since I've been doing this consistently for the past 2 years. I'm going to continue that. Continue the support group. Do the round table. We're going to talk about this, what that means. I have number 18 on my list, open space, like create open space in my day, in my week, in my plan, in my calendar. I'm just going to create open space for doing nothing. Number 19 on my list is challenge my thoughts and work with my thoughts and choose my thoughts, which is a hard practice, but I don't want to believe in every thought that I have. I want to work with my thought pattern. And number 20 on my list is a question. Is this worth my time? And if the answer is no, I'm not going to dedicate myself to anything that is not worth my time. It might be something that I am able to do for someone or for people or whatever cause. But if it's not aligned with my time, with my values, I guess I'm not going to do it.
I love your list. It was great stuff.
And number 21 on my list is do things outside of my comfort zone. I think I was in my comfort zone in 2020 pretty much, and I didn't push myself. But this year, I want to push myself as often as I can to see where I will end up. So that concludes my list. You're nodding. Do you like my list? Well, there were similar items, and we are both working on things, but it doesn't have to be for the listener to create this kind of list. They can come up with fun things to do, 21 jokes to learn, right? I mean, people can take this lightly or deeply, and they can do this exercise. I think it's a good one. And maybe next year when we record the final episode, we can revisit this list and reflect on it and see what we have done or we haven't.
Anna, what can we expect for 2021 from you?
I am going to continue doing the podcast, as I mentioned before. I will continue bringing on excellent guests, and I have lined up some amazing names that people will recognize right away, starting in January. I have great guests coming up. I am going to continue the coaching episodes. I am going to continue the episodes with Laura Froen to
Those are my favorite.
Answer the listener questions. Okay, great. I am going to continue the support group calls with more action-oriented and more focused work as opposed to just sitting there and talking and supporting each other. We're going to actually take it to the next level. I am going to continue and push you to continue the book club since you were so generous with your time to initiate and poll people and put it together. So it turned out to be an amazing thing. And one of the guests of the podcast recently told me, if you do a book club and read my book, I'll pop in and answer any questions with your book club members. And I think it's a phenomenal thing. If the author itself can join our book club, I mean,
that's amazing. That is so
that's
kind of her to offer,
right?
Yes.
Yes. And she's not a small person. She's like a big name. Retreat I have here on my list. Depending on the vaccines and the COVID-19 situation, I'm not committing to any date. I'm leaving this open-ended, but there is a plan for the Authentic Parenting community to gather together in a small retreat. I have amazing ideas that I'm going to just unleash, and a conference, 2 events, like a small intimate gathering, a retreat, a destination retreat, and maybe the Authentic Parenting Conference in the same place as we held it last time. And you are going to be my event planner.
Ooh, I'm so excited.
Yes, me too. So let's talk quickly about the round table that I want to offer, which is a completely new thing, and it randomly came out of our support group. We were chatting together and supporting one of our members, and I said, guys, after like 1.5 hours of talking together, I said, this is such a gem. This conversation needs to be heard widely by our audience. And I want to do a round table. First, we're going to start with the support group members. We're going to choose a topic to discuss because everybody is an expert to me. I will facilitate the conversation. It's not going to be like a support call. We're going to philosophize, talk deeply about a concept, a notion, or a topic. And everybody can share what they think. And we have such a diverse group, right?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be an amazing addition to the podcast. And furthermore, I would love other listeners to join the core group of the roundtable. We will have guests. We will have an open chair every time for a new person to join and participate in our in-depth conversations about parenting or personal development topics like self-care, boundaries, your inner child, authenticity. There's a variety of topics we can choose from and have, deep philosophical conversations. Say something, Julie.
Yes, the roundtable that we had this past weekend happened so organically. It was a mistake call that was made, and it was so phenomenal the way we were all going around helping one member on a topic that she was really struggling with. But we've all been there, and we were giving suggestions and ideas and asking curious questions. And, by the end of the call, you asked her, you're like, how are you feeling? And she said, actually, I'm feeling much better. So
yeah, and my goal with the roundtable is not to particularly support one person. I want to be clear, is I want us to discuss a topic, but also offer suggestions, what has worked for us, some tips. I think that organic conversation that we had, it was so eye-opening for me. That just gave me this idea. I'm like, you know what? It goes with my 21, the list that I had that says, go with your heart. My heart says yes. So I'm going to unleash it and do it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. At least I tried, but we're going to do this.
We'll see. But I think that your listeners will really find it helpful to them as well.
Yes. So we can go on and on, Julie, but let's be respectful of each other's time. And just may I mention that you're such a trooper that we recorded this exact episode yesterday and I forgot to press record, and you came to do it again. So thank you for your time, for your presence, for your mindfulness, for your friendship, and for your support throughout the years. It means a lot. I love you. I send you a big warm hug. We will meet in some retreat place and dance and giggle and hug and just enjoy life, celebrate each other and celebrate life. I want to wish you and your family a happy new year. May it be a year of health, wealth, prosperity, and for you, an empowerment and dreams come true. Go kick some butt, woman.
Thank you so much.
And to the listener, Happy New Year.
Oh, Anna, thank you so much. You are the sweetest. And I am so grateful that when I started listening to your podcast years ago, and when you said, call me, schedule a time to talk, I actually did that. And since then, we have formed a friendship, and you have become, my family knows all about you. My girls will say, oh, did you just talk to Anna? I mean, you have made tremendous, you've just done so much for me and my family. And I'm so grateful for our friendship. And I cannot wait to get together with you and some other parents from Authentic Parenting.
I know. I hope this episode inspires people to reach out. I truly want to hear from people. I want to know who they are. What are their children up to? How are they struggling or coping? What do they like? How do they listen to the podcast? What do they say about the podcast? Do they, there's some sort of critical stuff too. We want to receive that too to improve the podcast. But mostly, let's wish people a happy new year. May the new year be peaceful, safe, healthy, prosperous, and I hope everything will just be left behind in the 2020, whatever worries, anxieties, and struggles we had. Let's just slam the door on 2020 and move forward with new hope and with new compassion and an open heart.
Yes, to 2021, a year of action.
Woohoo!